Hey guys, so this video is on the second level of defense on the immune system. Last lesson we looked at the first level and how our body prevents things from entering, and this is the next step up from that level. So our learning intentions for this video are to understand the second level of immune defense and to know the role of phagocytes, inflammation and cytokines in an innate immune response. And we know that innate refers to that non-specific response. So the second level, what is it? It relates again to innate immunity, so it's continuing on from those chemical and physical barriers, and only is really in play if a pathogen or antigen can break through those first barriers. It involves non-specific defense mechanisms, and they're usually in play immediately when a pathogen enters our body. So it doesn't take time for this immune response to occur. They're normally already there, ready to go. And you can see in this diagram, we can see here's our skin barrier, and if it's been broken, the first level of defense is now beaten. And we start moving into our second level of defense, which you can see involves some of these cells and things like swelling, which we'll touch on as well. So the main components you need to know are the phagocytic cells, which we know when we looked at earlier on with the components, they're just cells that are able to do phagocytosis. We're looking a little bit at inflammation and fever, and then cytokines and proteins. So usually this second level is then enough to actually beat off most pathogens and antigens. So phagocytosis is when a pathogen or antigen is able to break through a barrier, and a phagocytic cell will actually go and engulf that. You can see in this moving GIF here, you can actually see this phagocytic cell going after a bacteria, and you can see it engulfs it and takes it in and starts to break it down with some enzymes. And those enzymes are in these organelles called lysosomes. And you can see in the diagram here, here's our engulfing of the bacteria, little red dot. And it continues to be broken down by lysosomes, and then it will actually eject that debris at the end. So that process is known as phagocytosis. There are many cells that can do that. The main ones, though, that we sort of talk about are ones like macrophages. They're our sort of Pac-Mans. They actually go after the pathogen and try and engulf it. You can see in this diagram, again, here's our bacteria broken through the first level, and our phagocytic cells are then going to go after them and start to engulf them, as you can see in this diagram. The second part of the second level of defense is inflammation and fever. So again, if a pathogen can break through a barrier, our blood vessels react differently. The area of infection will actually change as well. So the first thing that happens is we increase the diameter and the permeability of the blood vessels. That means it gets wider and it allows more things to pass in and out. And what that actually does is it actually attracts more phagocytes to the area. And again, we have those mast cells that we talked about start releasing histamine, which again further promote swelling and inflammation, and that attracts more of those phagocytes, or those Pac-Men, to the area, and it actually helps with tissue repair as well. So that's why when you, I guess, cut your finger, you may notice it starts to swell and get quite watery. That's because the blood vessels in that area start to dilate, and you might also notice that it starts to get quite warm. So that's the idea of that inflammation and fever. The reason we do fever is if we're able to overheat our bodies, and the pathogens will start to break down and their proteins may start to denature. So it's another way that we could fight off pathogens too. The third one is just cytokine release. So at the site of infection, the immune system cells start to activate other cells and further components by releasing cytokines. And we know they're just our immune system messengers. And then we have the complement protein system. So they're just proteins that start to help our immune system cells out. They can actually destroy the membranes of certain pathogens as well. You can see in this diagram here might be a site of infection at a cut site, and this looks to be a dendritic cell just releasing cytokines out, and that would attract other cells to the area as well. So if the first level is broken and a barrier is broken, and then the second level is broken, that's when we start to head to that much more specific and adaptive immune system. We're going to call that the third layer. Now, in between the second and the third, there's a little process called antigen presentation. That's what our next video is going to be about, but we'll cover that over the next few videos as well. So in review, when a pathogen is able to break through a barrier, we have these non-specific cells such as macrophages, dendritic cells, neutrophils, all those ones. They may also induce an inflammatory response, so we're increasing our blood flow and swelling. Again, it's not a very specific system. This is just a generalized innate way of fighting off pathogens. And if this doesn't work, that's when we start to move towards our adaptive system, or our third level. So hopefully today's video covers up most of the stuff you guys need to know for the second level of defense. Thanks.